I'd like to welcome all the jazz chat fans to this episode on Friday with an extraordinary musician, a violinist. She's been nominated for a Grammy. She's been very busy doing sideman work on a large selection of CDs, plus her own personal CDs. I'm going to drill her with some personal questions here because I've got to know more about this young lady. We've played together at the Abersold camp in a quartet situation for the last few years. Not this year because of COVID, not last year because of COVID, but hopefully next year we'll continue on. Great rhythmic and harmonic sense, melodic sense over the harmony. I'd like to introduce to you the great musician, Sara Caswell. Hello, Sara.
Hello, David. Hi, everybody.
Wow, it's great to see you again. I've been reading about you, all the great reviews, and unfortunately, both of our lives has stopped in terms of touring. And
Yeah.
I noticed you did a concert at Miami-Dade College, and my concert is following you on April 7th.
Oh, fantastic.
As part of the same series. I last did that in 2016.
Yeah.
And I guess Andy Laverne was scheduled to do it. And for some reason, I don't think he wanted to wear a mask and be around other people. I felt a little nervous about that.
Yeah, of course.
And so Mike called me, and I did a session with my trio, Joe Manis on tenor and soprano, and my drummer, Charlie Doggett, and myself.
So, oh, great. Yeah, we were actually supposed to do, my concert was actually supposed to happen in March of 2020. And just, a couple weeks before the concert was scheduled to take place is when COVID hit New York especially hard. So the concert was postponed until, well, it was just we were talking about possibly rescheduling it. I think there was hope that the virus wasn't going to be around for very long, that we would kind of address it pretty quickly and things would be back up and running. But, very quickly it became apparent this was going to be around for a while. So this concert got rescheduled for March of this year. And there was also a plan that I might fly down to Florida and do a concert, a live stream concert with the MDC faculty, but then that was deemed unsafe. So we went ahead and did a live stream here in Brooklyn, and then they broadcast that as well. So
they're good musicians down there. I did that in 2016 with Mike and the group, and great musicians, and it all turned out very well. Thank goodness for live stream, right?
I know it's completely changed, and it's made this whole pandemic a manageable thing. I think artistically and creatively, just having a chance to reach people and to communicate and connect with our audience and friends and fans. It's definitely made it a manageable way of getting through it.
And receive some donations on top of that.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt. Yeah, but it's interesting. I actually did a live stream last night, and with one of the bands that I'm part of. And yes, it's obviously a very different experience from what live performance is all about. And you'd think that there isn't a way to really sort of feel the connection with the audience, but remarkably there is. You can see the people on the screen. You can sense that they're somehow, some way they're able to put that energy out into the air. And it's a very cool thing to really feel as though you're connecting in some capacity with people.
Yeah. I saw your performance that you did at Miami-Dade.
Yeah.
And it's a nice group, wonderful guitarist and drummer and bassist. Is this your regular group?
Yes, yes. So I have Ike Sturm on bass, Jesse Lewis on guitar, and Jared Schoenig is my drummer typically, but he is in California right now. So I was very lucky that Michael W. Davis was available to play the show. So, but those guys I've known for years. They're kind of my brothers. I see them as my brothers, and yeah, we've been playing together for over 10 years here in New York, and yeah, they were the ones who sort of nudged me to put together a new album of music, which will hopefully be released, if not this year, then next year. But
Your
yeah,
compositions or
it's a mix of my compositions, a couple of theirs, and some arrangements as well. But yeah, it's my first album that I've recorded in 15 years under my own name, so it's been a little while.
Well, that's
But
good.
yeah, it's all mixed and mastered, so it's just a matter of waiting for the right time to release it when we're actually able to tour again. So
Well, it was a nice group. I thought you had been playing a long time. There
yeah,
seemed to be this real organic quality, to it.
yeah,
It wasn't
my brothers.
forced. Well, that's wonderful. Listen, Sarah, I'd like to know a little bit more about you, and I'm sure the fans would too. Um, where were you brought up in Bloomington or?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Bloomington, Indiana. My parents moved there in the late 60s. My dad was offered a position in the musicology department at Indiana University. And that's actually where the whole connection with David Baker happened, because David Baker was also brought on faculty around that same time. So yeah, I grew up in Bloomington, which was just an amazing place to grow up. With the university being there, it was a very diverse town, like culturally very enriched and alive. And I loved being in that place. I mean, the music school was amazing, so you had all these incredible artists coming through town. Geographically, it was just a beautiful location to be raised in, with the Ohio River Valley not too far away, and all that. So yeah, I loved growing up there, and loved kind of getting my my musical experience and education through the university, and through so many of the great professors who were teaching there.
Why violin?
Oh man, well, it was interesting. So my mom played organ and piano, and my parents were both musicologists. So they knew that they wanted both me and my sister to get started playing some instrument. They weren't quite sure what. I think there was maybe the assumption that we might play piano, since there was one in the house and my mom played. But one of my mom's students was actually a violinist at Indiana University, and was very interested in pedagogy, and getting students started on violin. And she convinced my mom. She was like, "Oh, we have a great pre-college string program here at IU. Sarah should start out in that program." And my mom actually, it's kind of funny. My mom really didn't like the violin. I mean, she liked it in professionals' hands. She loved it, but the idea of, as what she called it, a squawk box in the house, was something that she was a little, wasn't super excited about. But this student of hers sold her on it. And so we went over to the violin shop in town, and I vividly remember the drive over to the violin shop. I remember the dress I was wearing, the car ride over there, picking up the violin, driving home, taking the instrument out of the case, playing two A's, like just kind of pitsing it clumsily, two A's and two E's, and getting really excited because I recognized that to be the melody of Twinkle Twinkle. And then I got really frustrated right away because I couldn't figure out how to make the rest of the notes happen. So I was hooked from the beginning, and from that point on, it was just, yeah, it was a game. I loved it. It was just a joy to play the instrument, and it's where I felt the most myself. I was a pretty shy kid, and the violin, when I had it in my hands, was the one time when I would feel just very at ease with with myself and the world, and everything else. So I was hooked.
Um, Szigeti or Milstein? Which one
Oh,
do you
I
like?
Ah, I would say Milstein. It's funny. I was very heavily influenced by the people I was surrounded by physically. So Joseph Gingold, who was one of my teachers later on in my education, I think he was perhaps the most influential person, like influential player in my life, just because I had a chance to really not just experience great violin playing, um, you know, in person, but there was, I don't know, there's that sense of really witnessing it to the fullest, where you hear the music, you are feeling the music, that you don't necessarily get from a recording. And that was, just to be able to sort of breathe the same air, feel the same vibrations that were floating around. Those are the artists that I've been influenced the most by, because when I'm able to actually see them play in person live and right in front of me. So I think Joseph Gingold was actually probably the most influential violinist for me growing up.
Uh-huh. But you listened to Milstein, probably.
Oh yeah, of course.
Sergei.
Yeah.
And in terms of jazz, was there a jazz violinist that inspired you at all?
It's interesting. Yeah, David Baker, when he started teaching me, I was around 8 or 9 years old, and he was very he had a very definite belief in the idea that it was important for me to begin kind of immersing myself in this music through the listening and transcribing of solos that were done by people who weren't playing the violin. So he basically said for the first 5 years, he didn't want me to transcribe any violin players. And I think he just definitely wanted to make sure I was absorbing the language and wasn't necessarily gravitating to the idiomatisms that a player might do. So he wanted me to get the core language first, and then later on, after my language had already kind of gotten a start, that I could listen to some violinists and get some influence. So my biggest influences growing up in the jazz side of things were players like Charlie Parker and Clifford Brown and Miles. And later on, of course, then I was exposed to Stuff Smith and Jean-Luc Ponty and Sven Asmussen, like all these players who were just amazing artists. But they came later in my sort of immersion into the music.
When I was in Paris in 1962, I was at the Blue Note. In fact, I did a gig there while I was on leave from the Army.
Yeah.
And Ben Benjamin invited me back the next day. Ben Benjamin was the owner of the Blue Note in Paris, there on the right bank. And I heard this young violinist. He was going to school in Paris at the time. It was Jean-Luc Ponty. He was still in school at the time. And
oh my gosh! Yeah.
And I heard this. I heard him at this very rich harmonic, melodic sense, playing really pure jazz. He was playing standards and things like that. There wasn't that fusion rock element involved in his playing, which is great too. But I heard him at a very young age. It was great.
Amazing.
I'm trying to think of the violinist, the Polish violinist that Glenn Moore played a lot with.
Oh, I am awful with names. I'm the worst person to ask.
I'm having a senior moment. You are too young to have a senior moment.
We'll both remember it after this is over, I'm sure.
He's a great one. Probably one of the greatest jazz violinists I ever heard in my life.
Man, oh man, I'm so sorry. I should be remembering this myself.
I can't think of his name. Polish player, Mike White.
Yes.
Who is part of Fourth Way? Is a San Francisco violinist.
Yes.
Very raw type of playing, not the sophistication that you bring to the instrument. This is one thing I love about your playing, is that it's the time feel and the melodies you play over the harmony. Everything seems to be not only justified. I mean, the time justifies the notes we play, but there's no justification needed. It's everything is right there. I've always felt this about your playing. And very interesting how you play my music, because my music is not the easiest music in terms of the angular.
Yeah, but that's of course what I love about it so much. You have this wonderful blend of the angular and the melodic. Like there are ways to sort of piece these things together, and that's for me what's so much fun about it, is to find my path. through your songs, and to really figure out how to to create those melodies that will work and really best embody the harmonies that you have there. I mean, your tunes are some of my favorites. They're hard for sure. I'm definitely practicing them quite a lot before the gigs, but it's practice that I look forward to, and certainly then when we're on stage performing, it's just a thrill to see how all that energy and all those how we all kind of create our paths and make the music work in layers.
Something
It's beautiful.
different. It's always nice to get into something different. If you had to play my music all the time, it'd probably be boring, but maybe
I'd
not
be
because
lucky. No, you wouldn't
I'm
kidding me?
I'm writing music almost every day.
I
I'm
love it.
new things that I keep trying to stop myself. I telling myself I don't have time for this, but I'm drawn to the piano, and
I
there I
love it.
go.
And so,
Um,
that's what I remember about camps too, would be like, I think whenever I would walk by your studio, the studio that you had during those 2 weeks, I feel like I always saw you either at the piano or at the bass. And you
yeah.
always seemed to be like, working out something or just sort of staring at the keyboard and sort of like figuring out these shapes. And I loved that it was just, even after a long day of teaching, you were there just really focused on these ideas. And it's
until
very influential.
12 or 1 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I always close
Wow.
up I'd get caught up and I'd forget about where I was. I just got so
Yeah,
involved in the music. A lot
it's
of this
great.
because I was such a poor listener, I had to teach myself to gravitate towards what I was doing. So there was intense listening. And I learned this a lot by playing with Jenny Zeitlin and Mel Waldron, two great pianists. Uh, the art of listening,
Yeah.
of just burying yourself in the music and not being distracted. I love violin. I used a violinist, Ulrike Dinter, German violinist. She's playing a lot of tango music now. Uh,
Beautiful.
but she had a great sound. I heard her play the Tchaikovsky violin concerto.
Hmm.
That and the Brahms are two of my favorite violin concertos. I love them.
Yeah.
But she wanted to get into jazz.
Mm.
So I told her, I says, and she knew nothing about it, but she got tired of the pomposity of classical music, the bureaucracy and all the
Yeah.
political stuff. And so I gave her a list of CDs to listen to. And I told her, I said, you got to listen. I mean, to get the feeling for the music, you can't learn that intellectually. You're going to have to hear the music
Exactly.
and absorb it that way. The next time I saw her, I guess she had moved to Berlin, and I was doing a gig, and I dropped by to say hello. And when I walked in, I remember I heard her, she had an obscure Booker Little CD playing. I mean, I've talked to young trumpet players; they don't even know who Booker Little is. It's like
Oh my
it's like it's
gosh.
like it's like not knowing who Babe Ruth is if you're a baseball fan.
Yeah, yeah.
And she had absorbed a lot in terms of feeling. She just was playing constantly in her
Wow.
apartment this music, Miles, Coltrane, Albert Ayler,
Ah, so great.
um, all this, Ornette,
Yeah.
all this great music. And she had acquired this jazz kind of feeling. So um, I I knew how she listened. I don't subscribe to transcribing solos um, for everyone. For
Mm.
some people, I think it's great. For other people, it's not. They get caught in an emulative prison and they never do break out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I gave her an assignment. I says, listen, next time I see you, I want you to transcribe 2 or 3 Chet Baker solos. And I purposely didn't want her to do violin because she's going to have to get different fingerings.
Hmm.
Transcribing for Chet Baker, she'll discover new ways of, I guess, fingering like I would on the bass, or
Yeah,
you
of course.
know. So she did this. It's kind of what you were talking about, David sharing with you. He didn't want you transcribing violin
Hmm.
solos, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my first solo was of course Miles. Miles a solo on So What. And then he pretty quickly jumped into some Charlie Parker, which was, it was probably a good thing that I was younger when that was happening, because I think if I would have been older and he would have assigned me some Charlie Parker, I would have gotten I would have been terrified of it, just because it sounded so, I mean, it's so intricate and so complex. But for me, it was just kind of a game. It was like, oh, this sounds really cool. And like, just, not necessarily thinking about the difficulty of it.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it was, I think, and for me at that time too, I was doing the Suzuki method of violin playing.
That's a
Um,
great one.
it really is. It's a wonderful methodology that really develops the strength in the ear,
Oh, yeah.
and so that hand in hand with the transcribing was a really great combination of sort of absorbing the music. And
Evidently, listen to the way you play.
no, no, but
Good.
I've always been kind of an ear player.
Good.
It was you'll appreciate the story given how well you know Jamie. When I was younger, coming to Jamie Abersol's camps as a kid, as a camper, um, I at that time, I'd been working with David for a few years, and I was getting a sense of how the language worked, but my theoretical understanding wasn't at the same level. Like for me, it was all ear, and if I listened to a solo the chord changes a few times through, then I would pick it up, and I would eventually kind of be able to hang with the other people in the combos. So David arranged for me to have a private lesson with Jamie during one of the weeks, and this also you'll appreciate the lead up to this too.
I'm appreciating it already.
So David, Jamie, and I all meet in the lobby, and David said, "All right, here, go follow Jamie. He'll, well, you guys will go have a lesson for a little bit." So Jamie, in his super fast manner, he runs off. I'm like trying to find him because he's already like outwalked me. His pace is so fast. So I chase him down finally, and we find a practice room, and he asks me what tunes I know. So we played a song, and I felt one that I felt really comfortable improvising over. And then he's like, all right, we're going to try something here. And he pulls out a tune that I didn't know, which was, I think at that time it was Confirmation. And I knew the melody, but I'd never really improvised over it before. And he wanted to see how well I could sight read the changes. And, when I'm in combo, I can always kind of like back off and somebody else can take the first solo. But there wasn't that option, of course, when we were playing duo. It's like, all right, I played the melody and I had to take the first solo. And, first chorus was pretty awful. Second chorus got a little better. The third chorus, was starting to sounding okay, but he knew right away at the end. He's like, "Yeah, you don't know how to read changes." It's like, "Oh," but it was this. I think that moment is definitely burned in my brain, because I recognized then that I needed to learn this stuff, and not that you have to, but I think for me to really be able to deepen my understanding of it, not only as a player but eventually as a teacher, that was going to need to be something that I definitely got into, and it was one of those eye-opening moments that was, I think, really important to have at a younger age, so that when it came time to go to college and all that I could really take seriously those classes that were kind of addressing the theoretical aspect of the music.
Yeah, chord skill relationships. It's an important process. The craft of the music. Those are the tools, aren't they?
Yeah.
You have a hammer, saw, whatever else. And the room I'm in right here was built with tools, but my room does not look like any of the tools it was built with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the craft.
Yeah.
Using that. And it's what you have so well. You've done this in your life.
Oh, thank you.
That's why I'm intrigued with you have that very special gift.
Oh, thank you.
Sara, and I and many other people appreciate this very much. I should have said this at the beginning, that there's a surprise for the fans, which is the way my personal assistant Natasha wants me to say it. There's a surprise for the fans at the end of our interview. I'm so sorry that we have come to the end of the interview. I could really go on for hours.
I know, we could keep on going, but
fantastic.
I understand.
The surprise is this. I would like to have you end this interview by sharing with the people that are watching and that will see this, some words of hope and words of encouragement in a broken world for people that are suffering out there, or who knows what they're going through or will go through, that you can leave us with.
Whew.
Giant steps.
Yeah. No, this has been a time unlike any other, and I remember vividly, those few days in March of last year when, when the floor just went out from underneath all of us, and that fear that just sort of overcame our worlds. Yeah, that's a memory I will forever have. But what I think I will also remember in more of a positive light is how we were all able to find a way to come together, and be it through Zoom or phone calls, or we found ways we fought through it and found ways to be able to support each other, and just become a family, whether it be by blood or by proximity, like our next door neighbors, or or by the people that we our musical community. I think there was a real awakening that what we take for granted day to day won't necessarily be there. It could be, if this time it was a pandemic, and I certainly have found that the friendships I have, what I do is, for a living, I don't take any of those things for granted anymore. And I think that sense of community and the strength and the care that I now have, the care that I have for the people who are in my life because of what we've gone through, is something that gives me a lot of hope for our ability to get through challenging times again. I feel more connected with my friends and my family now. Even though I haven't seen most of them for over a year, I feel more connected to them now than I ever have. And I feel like when I see them, be it in the living room for a dinner, or if I see them on the bandstand, that I will cherish those moments all the more. And I think I know I'm not alone in feeling that, and I can't see how that won't bring more positivity and more light and hope to the world when things resume.
Well, it's great words of hope and encouragement, Sara. Thank you very much for that, and thank you so very much for doing this interview. To the fans out there that have sat through this exciting time for me with Sara Caswell, please be well, stay safe, and God bless you all. Bye-bye.
If I'm feeling tomorrow like I feel